Hi, during this video I'm going to be showing you how I've created this 3-layer gel print using this texture that I found. I'm going to be using a technique where I use opaque paints on the gel plate to create layers to pull a one pull print. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. Drop me a comment below, let me know what you think or if you have any questions. And I will also drop a link below to my newsletter if you would like to sign up for latest information about my in-person workshops and my new online course. So let's get printing. So today I'm going to create a 3-layer gel print using this texture that I found. Now this actually came from a store that was closing down in the UK called Wilko's, and it was actually part of a statue, and it came on a stand which you can see there, I've just cut off. You would get a similar effect to this if you use something like a table mat or a placemat. I'm going to be using 3 colours. So I've got my Wedgewood blue, I've got my titanium buff, and I've got Paynes Grey. So let's get started. So I'm starting off by adding a small amount of the Paynes Grey acrylic paint to the gel plate. So this is an opaque paint, which means you're not going to be able to see through the layer. So I'm applying a thin layer to cover the gel plate. Just making sure it's rolled out nice and even and thin. So now I'm going in with my circle texture, and I'm just going to pop that down. And I'm showing you this to begin with because it went wrong. So I started off by using wet strength tissue paper because I thought I'd be able to get in all the grooves, you know, in between to remove more paint. But actually, because the paper is quite floppy, it just stuck to the gel plate. It removed parts, paint on the gel plate that I really didn't want to remove. And it was quite squidgy. It was kind of moving around as well when I was pressing it down. So you can see when I lift the tissue paper back there, I've removed too much paint and not quite got the definition I was after. So start it again. So again, a thin layer of acrylic in the Paynes Grey, but this time I'm going in with a piece of copy paper, which is much more sturdy. I'm getting right in there, putting quite a bit of pressure on, getting right in there to remove paint in between the gaps in that circle texture. Now, when you're layering with opaque paints, you've got to remove paint. Otherwise, when you add the next layer, you're not going to see it. So I like to think of this as like creating windows. So I'm trying to remove paint to create small little windows that you're then going to see the next layer of colour through. So you can see this time when I remove the circle, I've got much better definition, and I've relatively left the paint intact around. So now I can go in with the circle texture again and just repeat the process to add a little bit more detail to those corners. So when you're happy and you've applied enough texture to this first layer, you need to let this layer completely fully dry before adding the next layer of colour. So you can hear I'm going in now with my Wedgewood blue. Again, just a thin layer, evenly spread out across the gel plate. And I'm going in with that texture again in a different position, using the copy paper to take out those negative spaces in between the texture. And again, I repeat this process, taking out as much acrylic as I can to create those windows So then you will see the final colour coming through when we pull the print. So again, I've just moved that circle texture to a different position, going back in with the copy of paper, repeating that process to create more windows so I can see the final layer of colour coming through. Again, once you're fully happy with this layer, you need to let this layer dry completely before going in with your final layer of colour. So make sure it's drying completely. This took around about 5 minutes today because it was really kind of cold and damp in the studio. So I'm now going in with my final layer, the titanium buff. Again, rolling out a thin layer to cover the gel plate evenly. So once I've got a nice even layer of the Titan buff, I'm going to lay down a piece of cartridge paper while this paint is still wet. And then once the paper is down, give it a good rub and leave it to dry for a few minutes before pulling the final print, and there you have it. You can see it's lifting cleanly off the plate, so that's how I know I've left it to dry long enough. And there we have our final print. Drop a comment below, let me know what you think.